Hello, folks. So, I have something really cool I want to share with you. First, I have a question for you. Are you part of an institution or a project that seeks to create something new in the world? Think of like a new for-profit product or service, or maybe something new in the nonprofit space, a sort of new program, or even organization, or even a faith-based ministry. My second question for you is: are you working under conditions of uncertainty? Well, if the answer is yes to either of those, then I have some news for you. According to author Eric Reis, who is the author of The Lean Startup, which here is my audible version on my phone, the author of the book The Lean Startup, you are an entrepreneur. So if you are thinking about building something new, I really, really recommend this book. This is not a book of high theory or arcane, uh, theology, but it's really a practical and actual tool to create something that really serves people. And I've had this book and owned this book for years, and I've loved it. And I'm not quite sure actually where my physical copy is. I must have worn it out. This book really sort of argues for 5 principles. And so first and foremost, like I just said, anyone can be an entrepreneur. So like when I said at the beginning of this review of this book, if you're trying to create something new under conditions of uncertainty, then you are an entrepreneur. This doesn't just include folks who are trying to make the next Google or whatever, or next Facebook, or next super cool gadget, but also folks who are launching new things within established organizations, right? You don't have to just be starting a new company. This is even if you're trying to start something new within the contents of a new context of a new organization. So that's you. Welcome to the club. Successful entrepreneurship, this is two. Successful entrepreneurship is a kind of management. And it's a really different kind of management than is best for well-established organizations, right? A lot of my audience here, they're related to church and sort of religious institutions. So even related to how you would maybe manage the finances and the resources and the tools of a congregation or some sort of faith-based community, really different. And this goes to our third principle. So in like an established a for-profit organization, a for-profit business, the most valuable thing, the point of those businesses, of course, is money, is profit, right? Is money and profit. That's what they're in the business in business for. In established nonprofits, the most valuable thing are mission-aligned, measurable outcomes, right? So you have a mission, you probably have some programs, things like that you're doing to go achieve that mission, and can you measure those things and say, look, this is how we're changing the world. But for a new thing, for a startup that's being led by a real entrepreneur, according to Eric Reis, the most valuable thing is something that he calls validated learning. I'll say it again, validated learning. It's about learning stuff and truly learning stuff. This is where like stuff of assumptions and hypotheses about this new thing that you're building are tested to see if they are correct, or actually more likely if they need to be adjusted. They're probably wrong and you need to fix them and tweak them. Okay. The fourth principle is new things are not served well by dashboards and accounting practices of established organizations, right? So just like how you would manage an established organization and how you would do human resources, all that kind of stuff, same for like the information and the management accounting and even the fiscal accounting that goes along with with new startups, right? Instead, new things, startups, they need something that Eric Reis calls innovation accounting. This is kind of accounting that avoids sort of what he would call problematic vanity metrics, you know. And I'll talk a little bit in a second, sort of give some ideas on what are some better metrics and what are some worse metrics. And instead, these metrics need to capture and leverage that validated learning that I talked about in the third principle, okay? So the best metrics in this system are actionable, accessible, and auditable. What does that mean? That is that you will know what action to take by looking at the measurement. That makes it actionable, okay? You'll be able to say, hey, look, it isn't just attendance over a lifetime. When we tried this little experiment, this many people showed up, and that experiment maybe sort of had, flyers around the community, right? And you'll say, did that meet our goals? Did that meet our vision? Did that meet what we're trying to achieve? If not, you tweak, you do something different. They are also accessible. That means everybody who, they're not like the domain of like the entrepreneurial leader or the team leader or the minister or whoever's running this thing, right? They are accessible. Folks can access them, and they're also not too weird and wonky, right? They're not too complicated. The dashboard, if you create a dashboard of this innovation accounting dashboard, it's not too strange, right? And finally, they are auditable, and that is that somebody could easily sort of take the raw information and do the measurements themselves and recreate that measurement. So it's really easy to see where it came from. This is a really, really important principle. I think it also fits well to like ideas about like discipleship dashboards and things like that that go into sort of Christian communities and sort of the church context. Let me talk about the fifth principle out of this book really quick. And so the fifth and final principle is that the goal is to test and learn by moving through the build, measure, learn cycle as quickly as possible. Let me say that again, right? If the thing that's most valuable is learning, right? And the thing that you're trying to capture through these different metrics is your learning, then your goal is to move through build, measure, learn cycle as quick as possible. The faster that you do that, the more that you will learn, and the better chance that your new thing will become successful and sustainable, right? The reality is most new things, most startups just fail. And Reis would argue that they fail because they do not get enough learning done before they run out of resources, right? The goal is like you have a vision, there's a thing that you would like to achieve, and you're trying to figure out, okay, is this even real, right? And you're trying to sort of build that product, that service, that program, that ministry, whatever it is, right? And eventually just this stuff runs out of time if you can't get it right to make it both successful, as in providing the value, and sustainable financially. So your job as an entrepreneur is to build what Reis would call a minimal viable product, not just one, in fact, multiple minimal viable products or services or programs or ministries, right? You call these MVPs, right? And you will use that. You'll build a little minimal viable product, right? You put it out into the world, and you will measure how people respond, and then you'll tweak or maintain the thing that was being tested by that MVP, that minimal viable product, only on the empirical results. And we're not worried about things like politics or power. It's what does the data say? Okay. The two most important things that you'll need to be tested and tweaked until gotten right are the value that's being given to people. Is this thing really serving people like you're looking for? And well, as the second thing is that the resource engine, testing the resource engine that will help sustain this new thing or make it profitable in a for-profit setting. This is a great book. I've had this book. I've personally owned this book for over a decade. I've made use of this and a lot of its ideas in my coaching and consulting practices. Even leveraged some of these ideas into church context, though I've not completed sort of that translation. But this book will talks a little bit more about sort of vision and mission and things like that related to new things and startups. This book is also filled with examples. These examples they're all from the secular space, so from business, government, nonprofits, right? But with a little attention, this approach, in my experience, really would serve a congregation that is open to trying to follow God, as God, through the Holy Spirit, keeps trying to do new things in the world. Okay? There's also useful discussion in the book on how to incubate startups within established organizations, and how to eventually incorporate or bring those startups that are successful into existing communities. So if your new thing becomes a great success, right? How do you then bring it back from being that weird thing that is protected and held accountable in a different way into sort of the general management paradigm? If you like audiobooks but you listen to them on single speed, this is about an 8.5 hour listen on an audiobook. I have an Audible account. It's 8 hours and 20 minutes or so. You can listen to it faster and, of course, get through it faster. But if you find this resource really helpful, if you find this really useful, what you're really going to want to do is you really want to get your hands on a physical or digital copy as well. These concepts, as they come through, okay, you're going to want to take notes, write them down, and make use of that and give yourself access to those things in a maybe a little bit easier format. This one is definitely worth, for those of you who are in ministry, sort of on your ministry bookshelf. Okay. Thank you very much. God bless you all. See you later.